Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to piece together a story from the American Revolution that was almost completely forgotten. And we're going to do it using the words of a woman who lived through it all. We are basically stepping back in time, and our only guide is this one incredible document, all to find the story of a soldier and the wife who made sure his story was never lost.
So let's start right here, with his really powerful memory. Mary Rowe wrote this in 1840, looking back more than 60 years to the Revolutionary War. And you know, this single sentence, it tells you so much, doesn't it? It's a story of sacrifice that goes way beyond the battlefield and right into the heart of the home.
So, who exactly was this woman, and what was the point of all this? Well, to figure that out, we have to understand why she was giving this sworn testimony in the first place. How did her words, meant for some government clerk, manage to reach all the way to us today?
Okay, so our story begins, maybe surprisingly, not during the war, but way after, in 1840. The cannons have long gone silent. The United States is a thing. But for an elderly Mary Rowe, there was still one last battle she had to fight.
Just try to picture this scene for a second. Mary is 86 years old. She's so frail she can't even make it to the courthouse, so a local judge has to come to her. She's blind and can only tell her neighbors apart by the sound of their voices. And yet her mind is this perfect vault of memories, and she's opening it up to make her case.
Now, here's what's so fascinating about this document. It actually makes us go backwards in time. To get why Mary is making this claim in 1840, we first have to jump back and look at the life she and her husband built together, before the war even started.
And here it is, the official start of their story together, according to a page from their German family Bible, which, by the way, Mary actually sent in as evidence. He was only 19 and she was 21. Just two young people starting a life with absolutely no idea of the conflict that was about to turn their world upside down.
And this right here, this shows you just how tricky it can be to piece together the lives of everyday people from the past. The official records give us a skeleton, marriage dates, kids' names, but so much of the personal stuff is just gone. We're not totally sure who their parents were or even where they're buried. They pretty much only exist for us today because of these documents.
All right. Let's get into the real heart of Mary's declaration. Her incredibly detailed, vivid memory of her husband Philip's time in the New Jersey militia. This is the part where her personal story becomes a history of the war itself. See, Mary doesn't just say, oh yeah, he served. No, she lists the major battles, and these weren't little skirmishes either. These were brutal, important fights in the War for Independence, and she remembers Philip telling her all about them. He was right there in the thick of it. She also describes this relentless cycle of militia life perfectly. Philip wasn't gone for years on end. It was this constant back and forth. He'd be gone for a month on duty, then back home to the farm, then called out again whenever things got really bad. For Mary, that must have meant just living in a constant state of uncertainty.
But it's the personal stories, the little details, that really make you feel the danger. She remembers these specific things he told her, details that must have been just burned into both of their memories.
I mean, just pause for a second and think about that image. A soldier fumbling behind a corn crib to fix his rifle with enemy troops closing in fast. That's not some grand strategic overview of a battle. That is a terrifying, personal, life-or-death moment. The fact that Mary could recall it so clearly, over 60 years later, well, that tells you everything you need to know about the mark it left.
So what happens when the war is finally over? Philip comes back to the farm for good, and they shift from just surviving a war to actually building a family and a future.
And wow, did they build a family. 8 children, born over the course of 22 years. Their first child, Mary, was born just a year after they got married, before the war really kicked off. Their last, Johannes, was born long after peace was declared. You can almost see their whole life together just in the birth dates of their kids. Philip lived to be about 65. Then, in 1817, knowing he wasn't well, he wrote up his will. Now, this document is really important because it shows us the whole family structure and lays out his plan to make sure Mary would be taken care of after he was gone.
So, you can see the breakdown right here. Mary isn't actually given any property. Instead, her care is basically handed over to her sons, Jacob and John, who get the farm. The daughters get a token $5. This was pretty normal for the time, but think about what it means. A widow's entire security depended completely on her sons doing the right thing.
And that brings us right back to where we started, in 1840. Mary is an old woman, living under her children's care, just like the will said.
And that's when she starts her fight for a pension. Not just for money, but for a little bit of independence and for recognition of her husband's service and her own sacrifice too.
But here is the truly tragic part of the whole story, the timeline. Mary files her claim in 1840. 3 years later, she dies. Her application still just lost somewhere in all the paperwork. It takes another 6 years after she died for the government to finally approve it. She never saw a single dime.
And after all that, what was the final reward for all those dangerous tours of duty? $20 a year. It feels like an insult, doesn't it? An almost meaningless amount of money finally granted to a woman who was already gone. Her son Philip's words from another document filed a year later just capture the whole injustice of it perfectly. He lays it out in black and white. The certificate came almost 7 years too late. It's just this really bittersweet end to a life of service and a very, very long wait for a little acknowledgement.
So after digging through all this, what are we left with? Well, thanks to Mary's words, we've pieced together this incredible story. But like any good dive into history, her testimony also leaves us with some really fascinating unanswered questions.
These gaps in the story are just a powerful reminder that history is basically detective work. I mean, the records for 2 of their sons, William and Johannes, they just stop. We have no idea what happened to them. We still don't know for sure where Philip and Mary were buried. It seems like every clue you find just leads to another question, another path to go down.
And really, that's what this is all about. Documents like Mary Rowe's pension file, they aren't just dry, dusty records. They're the faint echoes of real people. People who managed the farm, who packed the knapsack, and who remembered with perfect clarity the details of a firefight from a lifetime ago. Their stories are out there. All we have to do is listen.